You know, I've been around for a while. Met some interesting people. Done some crazy things. So you just might think that there's not much that can take you by surprise. You'd be wrong. The world is full of stories, science and things that amaze and confound me. Every single day, incredible mysteries that keep me awake at night. Some I can answer. Others just defy logic. Are we living on a hostile planet? In Newfoundland, a small community is devastated by a mysterious explosion.
It really looked like a bomb had gone off.
Was it a secret weapon or a freak of nature? On Lake Michigan, a yacht vanishes into thin air.
This is the most extraordinary thing I have ever witnessed.
Was it swallowed by an evil fog? And in the Indian Ocean, two giant flashes of light send a nation into panic.
Everybody knew for sure this was something to be very concerned about.
Yeah. It's a weird world, and I love it. Listen, nature, isn't it wonderful? You know, Mother Earth, she's all we have. Over 6 billion of us occupy possibly the only planet in the universe that sustains life, but yet we take everything from her and give very little back. Is she getting mad at us? Are killer tsunamis, quakes, and tornadoes the Earth's way of saying enough is enough? Maybe. But there's something else going on with our planet, freaks of nature that are impossible to explain and can strike you out of the blue. Sunday, April 2nd, 1978. 12-year-old Darren Bickford was making his way home on Bell Island, a small community in Newfoundland on the east coast of Canada.
I was outside riding my pedal bike, and I knew one of my favorite shows came on television at 11, so I was pedaling back home.
But Darren wouldn't get to watch TV that morning. Instead, he would witness one of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries.
As I approached the end of our driveway, all the birds stopped chirping, all the dogs stopped barking. It just went so still. And then it was boom, like a shotgun blast, followed immediately by another boom, and then followed immediately after the second boom. The ground shook underneath me. It was the biggest noise I have ever heard in my life.
Suddenly, something unbelievable appears right in front of Darren, a glowing ball of light.
It was hovering off the ground when it appeared out of thin air, and the beautiful colors of blue made up most of the center of the ball. And outside of the blue, it was orange and yellow mixing together. And then just like that, the ball of light just disappeared into thin air. This is without a doubt the strangest, most terrifying thing I've ever seen. But I was terrified, but I was transfixed by it. It was so beautiful looking, this ball of light, and the colors and the way it swirled around. You couldn't help but stare at it. Even though I was scared, I was shaken, but I loved it, and I've never seen anything like it. And I guess I will probably never see nothing like it again in my life. It was all over in 4 or 5 seconds. But those 4 or 5 seconds are burnt into my brain just like a roll of film.
The massive explosion was heard over 60 kilometers away. Its impact wreaked havoc. People reported exploding TV sets, blue flames shooting from electrical outlets, and a strange beam of light coming from the sky. This bizarre event was dubbed the Bell Island Boom.
After this happened, everyone was in bewilderment.
One house seemed to catch the brunt of the boom. It belonged to Darren's grandfather, James Bickford.
Fuses in his fuse panel were glass fuses that were screwed into the panel. These had come out like bullets and went about 20-odd feet the length of their hallway and buried themselves in the wall.
Grandpa's chicken coop is demolished. The chickens inside, killed instantly.
It really looked like the bomb had gone off in his shed.
It's a bizarre scene. But even more baffling are 3 large holes blown into the ground.
There was a cone-shaped hole going 3 or 4 feet down. We didn't know what it was.
This weird and mysterious incident soon generates massive interest around the world.
A lot of people came, the media came. The television news crew had me describe to them what I had seen.
Myself, I thought something happened to the world, or someone dropping bombs or something.
Now, this is really weird, or what? Little kid is riding his bike, minding his own business, when boom, this town is suddenly smashed by some mysterious explosion, turning fuses into lethal weapons, exploding TV. And what about those poor chickens? Awful. What could have caused something like that? Was that me? Jim Farrell was a local fire investigator and one of the first to the scene. After being asked to investigate, he sends his report to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The RCMP officially concludes that it was lightning. Farrell begs to differ.
I said, I don't believe it's lightning. I've never encountered anything so great as this force.
But Jim isn't the only one who wants answers. Soon, Darren gets a surprise visit.
There were these strange men. I was told they were scientists from Los Alamos, New Mexico.
The Los Alamos National Laboratory built and tested the first atomic bombs. Could there be a connection? The men interview everyone involved, including Darren and Jim.
I told them everything I knew, and next thing, I was more or less ordered to turn over my exhibits to a gentleman.
33 years later, and I would still like to know to this day, what was the ball of light that I saw? If it was lightning, how did it remain stationary and motionless in the air? How did it appear out of thin air and then disappear into thin air? Those things aren't supposed to happen, but they do happen. I saw it happen.
The 3 strangers leave without giving any concrete answers. What were they looking for? What did Darren Bickford and the residents of Bell Island witness? And what could have created the Bell Island boom? Science journalist Brian Dunning believes the answer isn't so earth-shattering after all.
There's actually about 600 booms between starting in late 1977 going through mid-1978. Nobody could really localize exactly what was happening, but it was heard from South Carolina all the way up through Canada.
Could the Bell Island boom be part of a bigger phenomenon? What could be responsible for this rash of strange booms?
As so often happens when you have a mystery, all kinds of people started coming up with crazy explanations for what these might be. And the most common one was people thought it was some kind of a military test of a new super weapon. Something like maybe that Nikola Tesla might have envisioned. Tesla, when he was in his later years and was getting kind of crazy, he was coming up with all kinds of proposals for ideas. He never built them or anything, but one of his ideas was a giant atmospheric superweapon that would move a large chunk of the atmosphere over a city and destroy it. And some people were saying that this might be a test, an actual test. Maybe someone actually built this weapon and we're trying it out. We don't know any superweapons that are consistent with what happened at Bell Island. It's purely conjecture. It's purely just a hypothesis that you make up. There's no evidence supporting that. Maybe it is the explanation, but we don't have any reason to think so. What started happening in December of 1977 is that the Concorde was flying over. It was making its supersonic flights between New York and Europe, and that created sonic booms coming over the land.
When planes fly through the air, they make waves, just like a boat in the water. The faster you fly, the closer the waves build up at the tip of the airplane. And when a plane actually goes faster than the sound waves can move, they pile up into one big sonic shock wave that can cause damage to the areas on land below it. Could the Belle Island boom just have been the effect of a sonic boom from the world's first supersonic passenger jet?
Because it was a sonic aircraft and made a big sonic boom, it was supposed to go way out to sea. However, on hot days, because of fuel expansion issues, it would have to take a shortcut route and it would go over Nova Scotia. For all the 600 mystery booms that we heard, most of them were correlated with sonic booms from the Concorde and other aircraft.
Could the world's fastest passenger jet have caused the tumult on Belle Island? Or was it something far more deadly?
It may be something that science doesn't know about yet.
A small Newfoundland community is thrown into chaos by an earth-shattering boom. Was it caused by a supersonic airliner? Carl Stefan is a professor of engineering. His theory is very electric.
What I've read of the Belle Island boom sounds consistent with a super lightning bolt.
Super lightning bolts are extremely rare, but freakishly powerful bolts of lightning.
Most lightning has a negative charge. However, about 10% or less of lightning bolts are positively charged. Positive lightning also tends to travel farther. It can go several miles from cloud to cloud, for example. So the eyewitness reports of the Belle Island boom that said the sound was heard for many miles around, that's consistent with a long positive lightning bolt that, was going through several clouds in several miles distance before it hit the ground and did all that damage. The current is about 10 times what your typical lightning bolt would have. So it would make a much louder boom.
Superbolts almost always occur in the upper atmosphere over oceans. Very rarely do they hit land. But do they explain the weird things seen that day on Belle Island? Like glass fuses acting like bullets.
Strange things happen when very large currents flow through wires that aren't designed to carry them. Tremendous forces are set up, magnetic forces that can cause ordinary objects to fly like projectiles.
Okay, but what about the poor chickens that were roasted in their coop?
Chickens are susceptible to being electrocuted. What can happen with any kind of animal that are in a place where lightning hits the ground is the current running along the ground can actually run up through the legs and through the body and kill the animal.
Stefan's superbolt theory seems to help answer some of the mysterious incidents on Belle Island. But does it explain the weird glowing ball of light witnessed by Darren Bickford? Stefan believes the answer lies in an incredibly rare natural phenomenon.
The ball of light hovering sounds a whole lot like ball lightning. Ball lightning is sometimes seen to form right after a lightning strike. And it either disappears silently or it can explode. We suspect that it is an electrical phenomenon. It may be something that science doesn't know about yet.
Did lightning make fuses explode and act like bullets? Did it roast those chickens? Questions persist. If scientists don't even know what ball lightning is, how can they think that that's what Darren saw? If it was a superbolt, why did high-level personnel from a top-secret lab show up to investigate? And finally, what caused the 3 craters at James Bickford's place? Lee Tizard is an electromagnetic weapons researcher. He thinks Mother Nature shouldn't take the rap for this one.
I believe the evidence indicates that it was caused by something man-made and not something by nature. It was an accident.
But what could cause an accident on this scale? What kind of accident blows holes in islands?
During that time frame, the Russians were pounding North America with a very powerful and disruptive signal called the woodpecker signal.
The woodpecker signal was a radio signal used by the Soviets in the 1970s to provide early warning of an enemy weapons launch. By bouncing radio waves off the Earth's upper atmosphere, the ionosphere, they could analyze the returning waves for disruptions indicating a missile attack.
It was a 10 hertz signal, 10 vibrations per second, and it sounded like this. It sounded like whack, 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 whack. It was just extremely powerful. It was so disruptive that the UN and a number of countries banded together at the UN and protested to the Soviet Union when they found out that it was originating from Gomel in the Soviet Union, and they protested and demanded it be stopped, but it really didn't stop for a long time. I think it stopped in like the mid-'80s, but it went on for at least 10 years, the mid-'70s to the mid-'80s.
According to Tizard, the woodpecker signal was a ticking time bomb. He believes its use accidentally created a column of electromagnetic energy known as a standing columnar wave over North America. Despite being invisible to the eye, this huge energy field had the potential to be disastrous.
I believe that the standing columnar wave that was established collapsed. And when the standing columnar wave collapses, it creates these vortices of electromagnetic energy that have to dissipate. It sent down 3 spinning vortices of electromagnetic energy, and that's what we believe struck, explaining the 3 holes.
Did a Russian radio signal create an electromagnetic column over North America which accidentally collapsed? If so, why did it happen on a remote island off the coast of Canada? And does it explain the glowing ball of light?
It's believed that the standing columnar wave that was created by the woodpecker signal was attracted to Bell Island because of the iron ore content. It was a former iron ore mine.
Did the iron-rich Bell Island act as a giant magnet for a massive burst of electromagnetic energy caused by the Soviets? Or was it struck by a superbolt with a side dish of ball lightning? Whatever the truth, Darren Bickford and the other survivors of the Bell Island boom may never know. Weird, or what? A mysterious, deadly fog haunts Lake Michigan, swallowing ships and planes and bending time. Is this a true freak of nature? Is it weird, or what?
In 3 meters, turn right.
You know, modern technology is amazing.
Turn right.
I mean, with nothing but this tiny gadget, I can navigate to within an inch of wherever I want to go. Look.
Prepare to turn left. Turn left. Go straight ahead.
It even talks to you. What a nice lady. And it's so accurate.
Turn right.
Yeah.
Turn right. Turn right.
Can't turn right, you stupid thing. There's a wall here.
Go straight ahead.
Ah.
Go straight ahead. Calculating route.
Have you ever felt yourself disoriented, like you're lost from the woods?
Route.
Well, I am.
Go straight ahead.
No! It's not a pleasant experience, I can assure you. The Great Lakes of North America hold 1/5 of the world's fresh water. They're also one of the most popular areas for sailing in the world. But on a summer night, nearly 2 decades ago, Kathy Dorr discovered these gentle waters aren't quite what they seem.
The events of that night challenged my conventional view of reality.
It's a warm July evening when Kathy sets off for a leisurely sail.
Clear sky, light chop. It was beautiful out, and it was hot.
Just around nightfall, her calm journey is upended by something mysterious and alarming.
Very abruptly, we encountered fog, a very strange fog. It just descended on us. Poof, just like that.
In minutes, the fog engulfs the boat.
We feared that we might have a crash. At that point, I became very, very, very cold. In fact, I was freezing.
Blinded and cold, Kathy and her yacht have seemingly disappeared into a void.
The boat began a strange aquatic dance. It began to turn, almost as if it were pirouetting on its axis. There was no movement of the sea. This was not a whirlpool. I looked at the captain and I said, "Who's steering the vessel?" And he said, "Nobody, it's steering itself."
Amazingly, the vessel does 3 complete 360-degree turns. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the fog suddenly vanishes. They regain control of the boat and head for home. But when Kathy looks at her watch, she makes a startling discovery.
I've gone over this 100 times. We should have been back by 10 p.m., and it was after midnight. We cannot count for 2 hours. I don't know what happened to that time.
Kathy's pleasure cruise had somehow become a nightmare.
I just remember thinking, this is the most extraordinary thing I have ever witnessed.
What happened to Kathy and her yacht? Remarkably, her experience isn't the only weird event to occur on Lake Michigan. Numerous unexplained mysteries have occurred here. Passenger airplanes vanishing without a trace, legends of ghost ships appearing out of nowhere, and thousands of UFO sightings. Could the mysterious fog Kathy encountered be linked to these strange events? Was it a natural phenomenon or something unknown? Pilot Bruce Gernon believes he has the answer.
When I first heard Kathy's story, I immediately realized that she had experienced what I call electronic fog.
Bruce believes that sometimes different magnetic fields from the Earth collide in powerful freak thunderstorms over remote bodies of water, such as Lake Michigan. The result is a metallic, highly charged fog.
It's been known to actually chase vessels and try to capture them. And once it captures them, it clings to them, and the people become disoriented because it doesn't make sense to them. No one has ever realized that it's attached to them. Everyone always thinks that they're moving inside this fog. They don't realize that the fog is moving with them.
Once formed, the electronic fog is magnetically attracted to metal objects like ships and airplanes, wreaking havoc on their navigational controls and displaying other incredible properties.
It has an electromagnetic energy within it that can become so powerful that it can affect the fabric of time itself.
Time warping fog? An interesting notion. But is there any science that can back it up?
NASA has just recently announced that they have discovered something new in certain types of thunderstorms. And it appears at the top of the storm, emitting antimatter.
Created by massive lightning within a storm, antimatter produces 10,000 times more power than nuclear energy. Some scientists speculate that this sort of power could open doors to new dimensions of time and space.
And this is a critical discovery that relates to the electronic fog.
Incredibly, Gurney says he knows what it's like to be enveloped by the electronic fog. He claims one of them captured his plane over the Bermuda Triangle and that he traveled 300 miles in only 10 minutes.
And that would be impossible to do in a small plane like this. You'd have to be going close to 2,000 miles an hour. And when I landed back at Palm Beach International, we always topped off the fuel tanks. And on this particular trip, we used 10 gallons less fuel than we've ever used before. And I'd made this trip a dozen times. And I saved that receipt. I have the original.
Could a mystery fog have sucked Kathy Dorr forward in time? Do we need to rewrite our science books?
This is a very real phenomenon.
A woman and her yacht suddenly disappear while sailing on Lake Michigan. Were they taken by a freak of nature known as electronic fog? Dr. Don Adrian Rice doesn't think so.
Human beings are not always reliable witnesses to our own experiences.
For him, the explanation is far more straightforward.
I think what the person was experiencing was sensory deprivation.
When our senses are deprived, say with a blindfold, our brains try to fill in the gaps, often with strange results.
Typically, they begin to either hallucinate visually, they could have auditory hallucinations, or they could have kinesthetic hallucinations with the body.
Could a regular fog cause Kathy Dorr to hallucinate and mistake an ordinary event for something fantastical? Maybe. But how could it explain those 2 missing hours?
You're having a great time at a party or someplace, time seems to go by very quickly. If you are sitting in a meeting, time goes very slowly. And of course, objectively, the clocks are moving exactly the same, but that's not your experience of it.
Dr. Rice is so convinced that sensory deprivation is the culprit, he's offered to recreate the weird events of an electronic fog in his lab. All he needs are headphones, a set of goggles, and ping pong balls. That's right, ping pong balls.
The experiment itself is one where an individual is deprived of visual information by having goggles with ping pong balls cut out, placed over the eyes, which lets in a little light. But otherwise, the person is deprived. And at the same time, we'll have them listen to white noise sound.
The participants are not told how long their senses will be deprived.
Tell me a little bit about what you experienced.
I've seen sort of outlines of things, almost like looking at clouds and you see shapes in them a little bit. Sort of like the outline of an eye or a mask sometimes. Maybe the sort of shape of a house.
A sensation almost as though I was sinking down a little bit.
I've started feeling a little bit uneasy, a bit nauseous, as it felt like things were moving around a little bit.
The darkness around my eyes was growing, as though one was being lowered into the ground. Interesting experience. A little bit unsettling.
Dr. Rice has proved that depriving the senses affects perception. But did they also lose track of time?
I was thinking about 5 minutes. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was actually 2 minutes.
I was thinking probably somewhere between 5 and 10, like closer to 10.
It didn't feel like very long, maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes?
Incredibly, the experiment lasted for 20 minutes.
I think the most interesting thing for all 3 was the time distortion, because this lasted for 20 minutes, and they experienced it from 5 to 10 minutes. So again, that's consistent with the experience that the person had in the fog, or others who have been in these kinds of situations where they experienced time distortion. So in this short experiment here, If that were to be generalized to a larger situation, a person may experience themselves as losing even more hours. So that would be very possible. But what you can actually see here is how our brain works and how our brain tries to make sense out of a situation where the senses are deprived. So your brain continues to do that.
I guess it is pretty powerful what your mind decides to do, you know, in a situation like that. It sort of goes where it wants to go.
It's a bit peculiar that your mind can sort of play tricks on you like that.
I don't know where that time went.
Wow, that's an incredible theory. The fog caused a severe case of sensory deprivation, which made Kathy hallucinate. But you know what? I'm sick of watching all these wonderful experiments. I want to try this and see for myself. Great. Hello? Hello? Okay, here we go. Just wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm definitely seeing something. I think Dr. Rice might be really onto something here. Yeah. I can see white. I can definitely see white. And I am very disoriented. But I have to ask, can this explain how an entire yacht could get swallowed up by a fog? Hello? Hello, are you there? Can someone call a doctor? American author David Childress disagrees these strange occurrences are simply tricks of the mind.
This is a very real phenomenon. It's not just something that's a psychological aberration or hallucination on their part.
For Childress, the answer lies in ley lines, a matrix of magnetic pathways crisscrossing the Earth, connected by ancient ceremonial sites. He believes they can create vortexes of energy and manifest as the paranormal fog.
Other people call these ley lines different things. The ancient Chinese call them dragon lines. We might call them earth currents, or in Australia, the Aboriginals there call them dreaming tracks. The Earth itself is like a giant magnet. And it has a North Pole and a South Pole of magnetic energy. And that energy is created by the rotating, swirling magma inside the Earth. It too is magnetic. And with this ball, that's the planet Earth, with the magnetic lines running all through it, it has its own special energy. And it's where these magnetic lines cross and come together in certain powerful areas, geometrically scattered around our planet, that these vortex, hyperspace spots occur. And it's my view that these vortexes of energy occasionally are activated and become alive and become portals or doorways to other time-space dimensions. And this is what people get caught up in the Bermuda Triangle or in the Great Lakes Triangle.
Incredible. But does it explain what happened to Kathy and her yacht?
What may have happened to Kathy on Lake Michigan was that she was in one of these vortexes when it became activated. And suddenly a mist or fog starts to come in and surround you. You're not in the same place that you were. You feel you're in another dimension.
If, as Childress believes, Kathy really traveled to a new dimension, how in the world did she get back?
Many of the people who have gone through these bizarre vortex areas and survived are probably very lucky. We'll never know how many people have been in these same vortex areas and situations and they never came back.
Does this solve the mystery? Did Kathy Dorr sail into a patch of fog or into another dimension? Was she merely hallucinating as a result of sensory deprivation? Or had she entered a time vortex created by ley lines? Whatever the answer, it's most definitely weird, or what? A blinding double flash of light is detected over the Indian Ocean. Did it nearly cause World War III?
Everybody knew for sure this was something to be very concerned about.
When it comes to the mysteries of Mother Nature, there's a lot of things that aren't quite as they seem. It's all a matter of perspective. On one hand, it could look perfectly normal. On another, it could look like the end of the world. That's exactly what happened in 1979. Jeffrey Richardson is a U.S. security analyst. He knows lots of secrets, but he's yet to solve one of the biggest, the truth behind a mysterious event known as the Vela incident.
It's a fascinating anomaly. It's a mystery that reads like a techno thriller.
The tiny Crozet Islands lie in the Indian Ocean, over 1,000 miles south of Africa. Around 3 a.m. on September 22nd, 1979, something extraordinary happened there. Without warning, two giant, blinding flashes of light lit up the sky.
Everybody knew for sure this was something to be very concerned about.
Incredibly, 70,000 miles away, the flashes were also detected by a U.S. satellite called Vela 6911.
That triggered a very high level of alert, and from there, word went to the White House that something might have happened. They started calling in advisors.
They took it very seriously, rushing CIA agents to the area in military planes. But what triggered this extreme response?
In 1979, the United States had concluded a series of arms control treaties with the Soviet Union.
The Cold War rivals had just agreed to stop nuclear tests. But the flash detected by Vela 6911 could mean the Soviets were just playing games.
With Vela satellites, prime purpose was to detect nuclear detonations. What they saw was something that's very indicative of a nuclear explosion.
Had the Soviets broken faith? Had they really violated the new treaty and set off a nuclear bomb? Each side had thousands of nuclear warheads pointed at the other. The stakes couldn't be higher.
At first, the administration tried to keep wraps on the story, and it was full court press of intelligence activities to try to determine what was actually going on.
With a potential global crisis on its hands, the U.S. tries to confirm its suspicions by sending CIA sniffer planes to the Indian Ocean. Equipped with sensitive radiation detectors, they get an unsettling surprise.
There was no radiation detected. It was a mystery. They even sent people, CIA officers, into West Africa to get the leaves off trees to see if there was a residue from a nuclear explosion.
So what had Vela really seen?
They didn't know what actually happened. It's been such a mystery for so many years. In terms of strange events, I think it's, at the top of the list.
What happened over the Indian Ocean? What could cause a giant flash of light so powerful it could be seen 70,000 miles away? Tom Reed is an expert in nuclear weapons.
I've fired them, I built them, I've seen them go off.
He believes there is only one explanation.
I believe it was a nuclear test. A nuclear detonation is kind of hard to hide. I mean, it's not some pin drop in the night. It's a very major event.
But if no one witnessed the explosion, How can he be sure that Vela detected a nuclear blast?
A nuclear explosion has this sort of fingerprint. It is unmistakable.
This fingerprint is caused by the way a nuclear bomb explodes. First, it blasts out deadly gamma radiation at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second.
Technically, it's a flash, but to the human eye, it's this ball of fire and the sun has come to Earth.
Then, as the explosion grows, the shock wave produces a second flash.
It's very mind-boggling, and it's very frightening.
Does the data from Vela confirm the signature double flash of a nuclear bomb? The recorded flashes are shown as curves on a graph.
These curves, those are like fingerprints. This first peak is the device going off. As the bubble expands, the energy releases again, and so you get this second rise.
But if Vela really saw a nuclear blast, where was the other fingerprint? The radioactivity.
They decided to put it in a part of the world where it's mostly water. You then pick a weather condition like a typhoon. A really serious typhoon would wash all the radioactive debris right back into the ocean. The best solution to pollution is dilution.
Incredibly, weather records confirm a typhoon was in the area just before the flash. But who would take such elaborate precautions to conceal a nuclear test?
People don't develop nuclear weapons just because it's Thursday. There has to be some reason. Every nation that has gone nuclear has gone in response to a very clear and present threat.
Did some nation have a reason to feel threatened in 1979? Reed believes the answer is obvious.
Israel has very clear and present dangers on its borders. The Israelis have technology, they know weapons, but they didn't have uranium.
Israel could only make the bomb if it had a supplier. But who else was threatened enough to upend the test-banned apple cart?
At the same time, the Soviets were pouring troops into Africa. South Africans mine uranium as a byproduct of gold. They got so much of it, they don't know what to do with it.
With Soviet forces in nearby Angola, did South Africa have reason to partner with Israel and build a nuclear bomb? Does this explain why a flash occurred in the remote regions of the Indian Ocean?
It is quite clear to me that this was a test by the Israelis with logistical support by the South Africans.
Why is it that whenever someone sees something weird, they always assume the worst? I mean, honestly, is the world so paranoid? Are we really looking at a massive Cold War cover-up? Was the Vela incident nothing more than a crazy conspiracy theory? Or is there another way to solve this mystery? Nuclear testing. It's a plausible theory, but not everyone agrees.
Vela never recorded a secret nuclear test.
Giant flash of light over the Indian Ocean puts the world on nuclear alert. Was it a freak of nature or something more sinister? Professor Richard Muller is a physicist. U.S. President Jimmy Carter appointed him to investigate the Vela incident.
It was an important international issue with diplomatic consequences, and they needed good scientific review of the data.
Muller has analyzed the same information as the nuclear experts, but he's come to an entirely different conclusion.
When we began our study, we were all convinced this really looks like it was a nuclear explosion. Next step, though, is to check ourselves. We're all scientists who have discovered things. We know the process of discovery consists of coming up with an idea, with a hypothesis, and then really checking and double-checking yourself in every possible way. So we had a long list of questions that we wanted to have investigated. Next step was to have these teams look at these questions, get back answers to us. But after that first day, I was pretty convinced this was a nuclear bomb. But when we did a scientific review of the data, it was something new and different.
They discovered that Vela had connected its data with two light sensors called bang meters.
Bang meter was a relatively simple device designed to detect flashes of light. It's spelled B-H-A-N-G. It's actually named after a drug, using an Indian term, a drug that if you take it, gives you hallucinations, has you see flashes of light. So someone with a sense of humor named these bang meters.
But remarkable, the double flash recorded by each of the two bang meters was different.
The two pulses from the two bang meters didn't match each other. That was a real mystery, but it indicated that this thing just didn't look right.
But if there was no blast, what could have caused a signal that almost caused a nuclear crisis? The experts are mystified until Mueller has a flash of insight. What if it wasn't anything on Earth at all?
The Vela satellite is at a medium Earth orbit. It's far away in space.
70,000 miles above the planet, Vela wasn't protected by Earth's atmosphere. It was bombarded by tiny bits of rock and metal called micrometeorites.
These micrometeorites don't reach the ground because the atmosphere slows them down and absorbs their energy. A satellite such as the Vela satellite is frequently hit by micrometeorites.
But even if micrometeorites smacked into Vela, how could specks of space dust replicate the massive double hump shockwave of a nuclear explosion?
If a micrometeorite hits the surface of the satellite, it knocks off dust. Dust reflects sunlight differently into the two bang meters. This could be the signal.
Is it possible the whole world was freaked out by a fleck of space dust knocked loose by a microscopic space pebble? After running more tests, Mueller and his team finally reached a conclusion.
What we thought was a bright flash thousands of miles away was actually just a dim flash that's only a few inches away. Vela never recorded a secret nuclear test. It was micrometeorites. That's almost certainly what we saw back on September 22nd, 1979.
Could this whole mystery be solved by something as simple as space dust? After all, no one actually ever saw the flash. Mueller's theory became the official explanation of the U.S. government. But not everyone is convinced.
Clearly, to me, from a political point of view, there's every reason in the world to try to not talk about this, form a committee, and kick it downstream.
Incredibly, in 2010, declassified South African documents revealed nuclear discussions with Israel in the years leading up to the Vela incident. Could the space dust explanation just be a cover-up?
The mystery was basically solved back in 1979. The people who understood the arguments understood them and realized we were right. There's no issue here. But there are people who refuse to give up. There are people who argue we never landed on the moon. It was all videotaped in the New Mexico desert. There are people who believe that the Kennedy assassination had gunmen behind the grassy knoll. There are conspiracy theorists who keep these things alive despite the fact that they were pretty much settled by people who understood the arguments at the time.
In the end, we are left with a mystery. Was the Vela incident proof of a secret nuclear weapons test, or was it merely some space dust that nearly took the world to the brink of disaster? Weird, or what? So there we have it. Stories of mysterious freaks of nature from all over the world. On the east coast of Canada, an earth-shattering boom stuns a community and leaves scientists scratching their heads. On Lake Michigan, a mysterious fog terrorizes a sailor and alters the very fabric of time. And over the Indian Ocean, a blinding double flash of light creates a nuclear crisis. Are these stories evidence of mysterious forces at work within the world? Do we dismiss those who claim they are true? You decide. Join me again next time for more stories that will undoubtedly be weird or what?